Good evening, Dr. Begin, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Vitale. Thank you for having our Del Rio fourth graders. They're amazing and fantastic teachers, Alyssa Schramm and Liz Hoffman. They're here to perform for you today. They've been learning all about California history, and they are currently immersed in the Gold Rush. So they're going to be performing a song from their play Gold Dust or Bust that they'll be performing on April 26th and 27th. We'd love to have you attend if you'd like to come. Tonight they're singing the song Our Little Secret, giving us a glimpse into how gold was discovered by James Marshall at Sutter's Sawmill.
Wow, that was great. So we're moving on to our next agenda item, item 4, general consent items. We have public comment for item 4. Well, they're all together, so it's all right.
Call 4C first. First, we have Emily Wichman.
And while Emily's getting ready, the board is more than happy to receive comments about items on tonight's agenda, and also at the end we take comments on items that are not on our agenda. You have 3 minutes to speak, and I just remind you that we're televised and we have children and families watching, so we'll just be careful with our language.
I'd like to thank the district for renewing the MOU with the Oceanside Library. The library has an excellent staff and is supported by volunteers for fundraisers and board positions. I've been a trustee of the library, and also I'm on the foundation board, along with retired teacher, counselor, and school board member Lillian Adams, and retired controller for the school district, Karen Huddleston. The foundation has made possible and contributed to a circulating toy collection of educational toys to promote play and learning, an establishment of early learning and community information hub at the Civic Center Library. 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten is a reading program to promote families reading with their children 0 to 5. STEAM camp over the summer, establishment of mini libraries at Melba Bishop Rec Center and El Corazon Senior Center, with more in the works. Creation of an autism-friendly lending library, career online high school, support of Big Read programming community-wide in our schools, library furniture, shelving technology such as, which is in the Teen Zone and the Story Center. OUSD students with their library cards as their student ID have free access to check out over 100,000 plus children and teen books, magazines, and DVDs. Classic books, which include classic books, book clubs and bags, magazines, educational DVDs, test prep books, titles, Spanish and English, easy readers, and more. Also, 30,000 plus juvenile and teen ebooks and audio ebooks through Libby and Hoopla. They have access to educational databases online, such as Tumble Books, Read Along, storybooks, and educational games. Help Now, which offers free live online tutoring and homework help. National Geographic Kids and Britannica Encyclopedia, and Gale Science and Environmental Studies. They also have available computers, printing, and scanning at any library location, and the bookmobile. Plus, they have Chromebooks and hotspots for checkout with the library card. They also have a California State Park pass for the day use for checkout with a library card. Free online and in-person programming such as homework help, story times, after school, book clubs for the young, bilingual book clubs for kids, tweens, and teens, art and STEM classes, team volunteers, internships, opportunities, take-home activity kits, kinder readiness, and workshops. There's reading, there's summer reading, and also activities with the lunch in the summertime. The library does not charge fines or fees for overdue materials. The library is open, the Civic Center Library and Mission Branch, from Monday through Saturday from 9 to 7, and Friday and Saturday from 9 to 6. The Mission Branch is open Sunday from 1 to 5. Marie Town, who is the principal librarian for youth services, says the library is excited to be attending many upcoming back-to-school nights in September, community resource centers at schools, and welcoming OUSD student class tours back at the library. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily, for sharing all of that. All right. All right. Hello, Todd.
Hi. All right, so it's great to be back. If you've read the Coastal Academy report, you see some interesting numbers, particularly interesting given the contrast between performance by Coastal Academy and Oceanside Unified in educating the kids in our community. For those who don't know this, the charter school concept was originally invented by teachers. The president of the American Federation of Teachers once called for reforms to establish charter schools. The idea was to give education the ability to innovate and then learn from that to make improvements for all. That sounds great to me. Let's actually do it. We hear constantly that all the failures on our public education system are a result of lack of funding from the state. Let's talk about the financials a minute. In 2020-21, Coastal educated 1,800 kids with an expense of $16 million. That works out to about $9,000 per student. Same year, OUSD spent $232 million to educate 16,000 kids. That's $14,500 per student. That means OUSD spends almost $5,500 more per student. If it's all about money, then OUSD should be blowing the doors off of Coastal, shouldn't they? Our kids should be in education heaven. It's not that way. In 2021, Coastal's academic performance numbers show in English, 73% of their kids met or exceeded state standards. In math, 61%. OUSD's CASP numbers show in English 52% met or exceed state standards in English. Math, 31%. You mean it's possible to do a better job of educating kids with less money? Who knew? We hear we can't compare those numbers because public schools take a larger task on to educate more kids with special needs. In the report, we see Coastal has 15% of its kids on IEPs. Latest CDE numbers for Oceanside show 13% in special education programs. So I guess that's not true either, is it? Now back to using charters as an example for improvement. How do we do this? Or how do they do this? I'm sure there are many reasons, but from this report, we see Coastal's student-teacher ratio is 16:1. Oceanside, 22:1. 6 more kids per teacher. Seems pretty clear from the data. Coastal is doing what OUSD's parents have said they wanted us to do over and over and over again, putting their money into reducing class sizes, which of course is not what they do here. We've often seen OUSD throw a crumb here and there to parents while throwing millions of dollars into bonus raises for employees. Maybe it's not about how much money you get. Maybe it's about how you spend it. Maybe we can stop hearing the whining about not enough money from the state and take a look at the obvious example in our own backyard to find out how to get the job done. Maybe it's more about spending that money in ways that benefit our kids. We've seen over and over again what OUSD spends its money on, adults, not kids. And it's pretty clear to any thinking person that's not working. Coastal Academy proves that. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Our next speaker is Patty. Hello, Patty.
This is on what item?
This is item F.
Patty?
4F. You're talking
4F?
about item
Yes,
4F.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I think it's pretty clear from Emily's presentation that the library officer, the local library office offers multiple services and books for all the students. And I'm questioning the need for the amount spent at the school libraries when they have the resources. And it's not just, again, the money spent, but I was delighted to see the books purchase order, which we hadn't been able to access in the libraries. And this was for El Camino High, and I was surprised to see the Marvel comic books and the cartoon books and things like that at that level. Just a quick, I only had 4 or 5 pages that I briefly went through, and I don't know if you all are probably voting on it tonight for the authorization. I don't wonder if I could see a show of hands, which probably isn't available, but how many of you all voting for this expenditure actually, looked up the books on the 70-some pages that you're authorizing tonight? It's a lot to look at. However, just 2 that I wanted to mention and question the need for. And one was my friend Dahmer. Does the name Dahmer ring a bell? It doesn't, it's not a very good memory for me. And the plot depicts the author's teenage friendship with Jeffrey Dahmer. Sound familiar? Who later became the serial killer during his time at the junior high and Revere High School. It follows Dahmer from age 12 up, but not including his first murder 2 weeks after he graduated. The friend that's the author, while not excusing or forgiving Dahmer's crimes, presents an empathetic portrait of Dahmer as a lonely young man. And it goes on in his binge drinking, his bizarre behavior, etc. I question the need of anything positive in authorizing that book in the library for our kids that already have a lot of problems. Another one is A Madness So Discreet, and the plot is Grace May, a young woman from a prominent family, has been sent to reside in an insane asylum for the length of her illegitimate pregnancy. And it goes on till she stabs a doctor who had been touching her. Again, with a few seconds left, not a real good book that I would want you to authorize tonight. And those are only 2, so thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Patty. Our next speaker is Graham.
Gentlemen, thank you for hearing me today.
We can hear you now. There you are.
Now you can. Yes, I'm following Emily and Patty. who spoke Emily spoke very eloquently, I thought, explaining the approval of the MOU with the city's public library. The students will, I think, will have adequate access to library books without the need of spending $42,000 on additional over $2,000 books and $20 each for $20 each, and $17,000 for 667 ebooks for nearly $26 each for a total cost to the district of nearly $60,000, which might have been more wisely spent elsewhere to further the enlightenment of our children. First of all, I'd like to say I love books. I've been an avid reader all my life, but I and the public, I think, deserves better accountability and justification for this expenditure. I wonder whether the district staff conducted a review of these over 2,000 books and 600 odd ebooks, and were these titles being pushed by a publisher supplier as a bulk collection? It just seems to me it may have. On what basis were these so-called curriculum books selected? I just didn't see any titles fail to present a clear connection between any curricula or set of curriculums. It was all over the place. Are these to replace existing books? Another question. That are to be disposed or just added to the library's inventory? The price per book, especially with ebooks, seems excessively high at nearly $27 each. And I wonder, were there other bids? Is this a single bid? And if so, I don't believe that's the policy of the district. So I'd like to see what other suppliers might have provided and what quality of books they provided and at what cost. Lastly, or almost lastly, what is the proportion of kids that actually use libraries these days? My observation is they prefer the digital reading material more than going to the library. Finally, I urge you not to approve this expenditure until these fairly basic questions are resolved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 5A is public hearing for proposed reopeners for the 2022-2023 school year, and I'm calling the public hearing open at 7:06 p.m. And do we have any public comments, Micah?
We have two public comments, one Todd Madison, the second Graham Frazier.
All right. Hello, Todd.
Hey, good to see you again. It seems like it's been forever.
Well, okay, we'll take public comment. This item's a little bit different.
Sorry. Okay, thanks.
No, go ahead and speak. I'm just letting everyone
the
know
order of
that
things that we're getting
we
into here,
will,
so.
I will have staff review the items after public comment, like what they're about. So.
Cool. Okay, are we set?
Yeah, you're up.
Okay,
Thanks, Todd.
thank you. So another reopening of negotiations, awesome. We know what the outcome will be already though, don't we? Has anybody ever heard Ben Franklin quote about two wolves and a lamb deciding on what to have for dinner? Here we start the periodic process of the district and the unions deciding on who gets to take what size bites out of our kids' education. There will be a lot of words about doing what's best for our kids, but in the end, the district and the board will do what's best for themselves and for the special interests and approve yet another round of bonus raises for everyone. We'll hear how poorly paid everyone is. No one at the table will ever mention the fact that the district's own pay records show in 2020 the median total compensation of an OUSD administrator was $164,598. Certificated employees, $124,688. We won't hear that, though. Of course, those numbers do not include the 5% extra bonus raise that was given last year, which would make those numbers about $172,000 and $130,000, respectively. I think it's time to recognize people are being fairly paid. They have a fair contract. We don't need to normalize greed, as I just heard here. We'll also hear how necessary it is to raise salaries to attract and retain employees. But we won't see any data proving that we have that problem, will we? Taking candy from babies just because we can seems to be the rule here, not the exception. In reality, your own stats show you get an average of 5 qualified applicants for every job opening. The voluntary quit rate is a fraction of what we normally see. The HR department won't even ask employees why they're leaving. because that would generate the inconvenient data point that few very ever leave because of money. I suspect if you ask, you'd find that number very close to 0. Imagine if the board told labor groups and your own administration, we're going to do something different for a change. We're going to somehow make do for a while, and the regular periodic raises built into the normal salary schedule, forego another bonus raise, and instead put the money into things that actually improve the education of our kids. Maybe even try to get ourselves out of the bottom of the rankings in this county. Imagine if you did something financially responsible and capped the healthcare expense the district pays, asking your 6-figure employees to pay a fraction of what parents in the district have to pay for their healthcare. Parents see what's being done and are taking their kids out of the public education system in droves. Imagine if the parents with kids remaining in the system rose up and demanded that you provide an education that's at least as good as the other school system in our area, who manages to do a better job with half as much money. To quote Joe Biden, "Don't tell me what you value, show me your budget and I'll tell you what you value." I've looked at your budget, it's pretty obvious what you value, and it's not the education of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. And Graham, is Graham Fraser? Graham, you should have sat closer.
Well, I'm not as prepared for this item as I am for the previous one. I left it in my printer, so I'm going to have to wing it. Just as we just seems like this is deja vu. It seems like just a few months ago we were completing the negotiations that ended up costing us taxpayers $10 million. That drove the budget down to almost below, well, not into bankruptcy, but almost. And I fear right now that I call this a kabuki process, where the Oceanside Teachers Association, aka the union, negotiates with senior staff of the district, all of which are former teachers or teachers. So I just somehow sense it doesn't quite, to me, there's a little conflict there. I don't know how that's to be resolved, but it just doesn't seem right to me. What else have I got here? What I would suggest is that the MOUs that went back and forth between not the MOUs, the letters that went from the union requesting certain items be negotiated or begin negotiations. There's half a dozen of them. The first one, very honest one, I thought, improve the salaries. Fair enough for honesty. To that, the district then responded with this one and says, a lot of them somewhat similar, but said these are the things we want to talk about, okay? What's notably absent here is several things. It's like, how about discussing student performance and some sort of nexus between student performance and raises and salaries? And what a concept, huh? That they could actually be graded on their performance. That is never mentioned, and I would be really honored to hear this board discuss that matter tonight or at some point, because I've never heard any discussion about the actual very poor performance. As Todd just relayed to you, the poor performance near the bottom of this county, but that's never discussed, as Todd said. So what I would ask is that you turn down this letter or revise this letter back to the union and put in there some requirements regarding performance of your teachers for any extra money. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. All right, that's our last public comment for the public hearing. Thank you for the explanation. All right, we have public comment on item 5B.
We have one, Todd Madison.
All right, me again. Sorry, you're going to have to hear from me a couple times tonight. So here we see the union is intent on improving salaries and benefits, improving. Let's actually look at the data on those salaries and benefits so we know what we're trying to improve. Let's make sure the board and the parents of OUSD know those numbers as well. Any board that truly cared about our kids and making financially responsible and transparent decisions would ask the staff to prepare these numbers and present them at a board meeting to parents as well. But we won't see that because it isn't about looking at real data and making decisions that benefit our kids. As we've seen in many rounds in the past, this is about justifying yet another round of bonus raises for adults to be paid for out of our kids' education. Willful ignorance helps make that happen. Fortunately, even if our board and district don't want to look at the data is still there. From Oceanside's actual pay records, which I must thank them for providing to Transparent California under a Legal Public Records Act request and are available at transparentcalifornia.com, anyone who wants to check those numbers is welcome to do that. It's just math. I'd be happy to go through them with anyone personally if they'd like. I've said this for years, but no one ever wants to do that. It would be much harder to plausibly deny you knew what you were doing when it comes time to cut from kids, wouldn't it? In 2020, the median total paycheck compensation of an OUSD certificated employee was $93,673. Total compensation, including contribution to retirement plans and other benefits, $124,688. The U.S. Census Bureau says the same year, San Diego County residents with education comparable to our teachers made $77,730. I assume we trust the U.S. Census Bureau as a data provider. In pay only, that's about $16,000 a year more with the same education. Meanwhile, is everyone aware certificated employees get about 27% of their gross pay contributed to their retirement for them every year? That's 27%, and that's a fact. If we account for comparable Social Security contributions and 401k matches, teachers get almost 16% more from their employer toward their retirement than private employees do. With a pay rate of $94,000, that means they get $15,000 a year more put into their retirement than most listening to this. Anyone out there can do the math on what their 401k would be worth if their employer put that much money into it. It's a benefit worth a couple $1 million in retirement. How much more improvement do we need, especially when it's taken from our kids? In this negotiation, we'll hear about how it's all about the kids. We always do. Remember Joe's quote, look at the value? In the last round of bonus raises, the OTA president scored another $9,000 on top of her $194,000 a year in compensation. Our superintendent took advantage of the Me Too raise to add $15,000 on top of the $341. We see what you value. It's clearly not the education of our kids.
Thank you, Todd. All right. Item 5B, proposed reopener by the Oceanside Teachers Association to negotiate with the Oceanside Unified School District for the 2022-23 school year. Do I have a motion to approve? We have a first and a second. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to 5C. This is the proposed reopener for the Oceanside Unified School District to negotiate the Oceanside Teachers Association for, did I already mention that one? No, 2022-23 school year. Wait on, I'm looking. Sorry, you guys.
It's just the reverse, they're opener and ours.
Are there, okay. And do we have any speakers on that as well? All right. All right, Todd.
Okay, me again. So this is the other side of the coin. So here we see the proposal from OUSD to OTA, which essentially mirrors the OTA proposal. I wish we could count on our district actually negotiating on behalf of parents rather than negotiating for themselves, but we already know, again, that's not true, right? I brought up the fact that there are no parents in the negotiating team before and been told by my board member that he is my representative in that. I don't know that he's on the negotiating team, but it would be nice if some spine was involved. I'd be happy to meet that negotiating team, by the way. Since there is no one truly representing parents in this process, all the negotiation is in the hands of district administrators and union representatives. It's two lions and a lamb deciding on dinner, and the lamb isn't even in the room. Does everyone know what a Me Too raise is, too? I'm sure you guys do. A Me Too raise happens when a school district negotiates a bonus raise with its labor groups and then immediately applies the same raise to the people who did the negotiating. I was once in charge of negotiating pay for a division of a national retailer. How sweet would that have been if giving an employer a bigger raise, I could have gotten a bigger raise myself? That's crazy. I think every single person listening to this can understand what's wrong with that. What incentive is there to hold the line on a bonus raise for an employee when they can simply make up reasons why they need to agree to all the demands and then in the end get more money themselves? That makes no sense at all. We've already covered the making up reasons thing. Earlier this week, I was chatting with a group about this, and someone in the group mentioned he thought this was out and out corruption. I objected at the time, thinking it's really just a lack of ethics, morals, and poor governance by the board, the usual, not actual corruption. I've kind of rethought that and I take it back. I think it is true corruption in the form of I do something for you, you do something for me, both enriched by the deal. Mutual back scratching at its finest. But we will once again see that happen here, and very few parents will stand at this podium letting you know that they see what you're doing. After the last round of negotiations, where our negotiating team gave away almost $10 million, the board approved $8 million in future cuts from our kids. Including in those cuts is the result of the Me Too raise, giving an additional, as I said earlier, $15,000 a year to our superintendent. Todd McAteer stood to make another $12,000 a year. He's the chief guy negotiating this. And as I've said before, literally taking candy from babies just because you could do it. It seems pretty reprehensible to me. Let's do something different this time and represent the interests of parents and kids in this negotiation, not just the interests of employees. Can we do that? Thank you.
All right, carries 5-0. Moving on to item 5F, approval of revised school calendar for the 2022-23 school year. I believe we have a public comment for that, but I'll let staff.
We have one, Todd Madison.
Right.
I'm wearing a path here. So, okay, so here we are again discussing the calendar. So whether the revisions to it are good for families or not, I can't say. It's not my thing to make. What I can say, however, and what is very clear, is the fact that the district does not respect parents enough to actually include them in the process of establishing the school calendar. There's absolutely nothing more important than a parent's day-to-day life than their child's school calendar. It controls everything. Like when we go to work, when we stay home, when we can go shopping, when we schedule car maintenance, when we have to find daycare, when we can take vacation and when we can't. If you read the parties involved in the calendar committee, you'll notice that includes representatives of CSEA, OTA, and the leadership team. The word parent doesn't appear. Several years ago, I stood at this podium in front of Dr. Coleman at the time, pointed out the fact that the most important thing you can do affecting parents' daily life schedules had absolutely zero input from parents. At the time, Dr. Coleman recognized the truth of that, pulled the calendar under consideration, gave it to the DPAC for consideration. Stacy and I were in charge of the DPAC at that time. This was back when both of us still thought parent input was important to the district. We put the two versions of the calendars up for a vote. DPAC voted. One of the calendars won by one vote. The version I voted for lost. But I stood here at the meeting following, letting the board know that the DPAC had approved that version of the calendar. That process has never happened again that I know of. We get it. We totally understand that the district and the board have no interest in paying attention to parent input on anything with significant impact on the education of our kids, unless it happens to be good for employees as well. But does anyone but me think that being totally ignored on something that with the impact of calendaring has on family schedules represents a particularly egregious example of ignoring parents? When I was a child, my mother told me not to pay attention to what people say, but to pay attention to what they do. We see what our board and our district does, and it does not involve prioritizing our parents or our kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Victoria and Patty.
Right. Hello, Victoria.
Hi. Good evening. I'd like to speak to the district's proposed sale of part of Garrison Elementary School site to a housing developer for the tune of $16 million. As sad as it is to know that Garrison is closed forever and that the land of our beloved school is being sold, it seems fair to suggest that the total sales, when all of the land is sold, will exceed the cost of the current San Luis Rey modernization, which is around $18 million. Several members of the Modernization Committee, including myself and board member Alvarez, have repeatedly asked for the ceiling of the soon-to-be Pablo Talk multipurpose building to be raised during the modernization process to provide optimal sightlines and acoustics for student performances. Raising only the area above the stage does not allow sound to project outward to the audience. The current ceiling height of the San Luis Rey multipurpose room creates a dark, claustrophobic feeling, which is not conducive to a musical or theatrical performance. District leaders have said that they do not want to pay any additional costs that would accrue if the ceiling were to be raised. However, in light of tonight's proposed $16 million price tag on just part of the Garrison campus and the district's plan to remodel Reynolds Elementary with a starting budget of $50 million, it is glaringly obvious that there is no equity among schools in Oceanside Unified. Garrison and San Luis Rey, two of the oldest schools in the district, have been fighting for remodel since at least 2007. And we can't get a ceiling blowout to support our performing arts focus, but Reynolds' initial remodels budget at its inception is already more than 2 times greater than that of the SLR remodel. How is that fair? Oh, it's not fair. With all due respect to Reynolds, it's located in close proximity to both Libby and Del Rio, 2 schools that have been remodeled. Since the district closed Garrison, San Luis Rey is the only school in a very large area, forcing some SLR students still to walk over 2 miles to and from school each way. I do not object to remodeling Reynolds. I just simply believe that all schools should be treated fairly, and that both district leaders and board members should consider stakeholders' input and not solely rely on district rhetoric when making important financial decisions that will have ramifications for years to come. In closing, I just emphatically implore both the board and the district to meet the needs of the San Luis Rey students and staff by blowing out the ceiling of the NPR during our modernization project to create a stellar performance space for our stupendous Sea Gator scholars.
Thank you.
And Patty K.
That was an excellent presentation, I must admit. My comments are a little bit late to the discussion of the sale of Garrison. However, I know that the board has already previously voted unanimously to sell the land to a developer. So whatever you decide tonight, you'll probably go forward with it. However, the person that had the details is unable at the last minute to be here. But in summary, it is acknowledged that you, by choosing not to sell to the city of Oceanside, for a larger amount of money, you basically, and you are denying the students that you seem to so care about, the much needed sports fields that they needed. The Garrison School site has already groomed fields, it has restroom facilities, etc. And you all have voted that you'd rather, go for the developer fees than satisfy the requirements needed by the city of Oceanside for the sports fields. So that was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. We have 10 public comments tonight, so we're very excited. Thank you for your patience. We need to take a biology break. So I'm going to turn it over to Micah. He's going to call off several at a time.
We have Anthony Flores, Wayne Gaudemet, and then Rudy Kraus. My apologies.
All right. Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. First time speaker, so very, very grateful for the opportunity. I want to talk about field access and some of the issues we've been having. I'm a father of 5. All of my kids play rugby. I have 4 daughters, one son. And I represent Thunder Rugby here tonight. We've had multiple issues trying to obtain fields in the city of Oceanside, and I know that's a city issue. But I'm here tonight to talk about possibly gaining access to school fields and school facilities. There are a number of fields out there, and for whatever reason, it seems difficult to obtain access. Rugby is a very fast-growing sport and has given my kids wonderful opportunities to travel. A couple years ago, we were able to travel to Portugal to go international to play ball. and even nationwide. They've played in tournaments in Texas and Arkansas. I have a daughter right now who's out there in Florida training to play in a pretty big tournament, all from Oceanside, representing Oceanside, yet we cannot practice in the city of Oceanside. We have to practice in other cities, other schools. We're at Valley Middle School in Carlsbad, Army Navy. Right now we're at Calaveras Middle School practicing. When most of our kids are from the city of Oceanside, go to Oceanside schools, especially our girls teams. About 70-75% of the girls team is from Oceanside, who attend Oceanside, El Camino, and MLK, and even girls here at Chavez. It's a sad thing that we have to go outside of our city to practice and have games. We recently hosted games in the city of San Diego, close over there to Cathedral Catholic High School. A team from Oceanside hosting games in the city of San Diego, you know, because we cannot get access to Oceanside fields. And that's the whole city of Oceanside. All the youth, we're in desperate need of fields, we're in desperate need of field lights, we're in desperate need of field upgrades, including the school field. So I'm just here to ask that we help facilitate that the school board facilitate a conversation or vice versa with the city of Oceanside so we can gain access to the school. Our kids, our youth, the sports programs teach invaluable lessons. We've heard a lot of great things with education, you know, and parents concerned with the kids' education, but there are sports programs too that teach invaluable life lessons, and I'm a heavy believer in that. So again, thank you for your time, and I just hope we can facilitate that conversation between the school board and the city of Oceanside and the Parks and Rec Commission. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you. Next, we have Wayne.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me today, and I want to thank all of you for what you do, and I really appreciate the work that you do for students here in Oceanside. As I sat there in the back, I recognized a few people going way back, you know, up there, board members, a few administrators, and some of the people in the audience go back many years. Been volunteering in the city, primarily in the rough neighborhoods that are claimed by the gangs in Oceanside. We went from 15 down to about 11 right now. And then also, you know, just working in the schools and appreciating a lot of the support we had from the teachers. Back in 80s and 90s, we developed the Cup Stack program, and I was out in all of your schools, and it's in history. I'm writing the book of Cup Stack. Mr. Frazier here flew to Japan with his wife during the Sister City deals to represent the city of Oceanside in Fuji, Japan. Also with the mayor and these guys into American Samoa. So tonight I'm here on behalf of Save Our Streets. That was the group that was started when Dan Besant was shot and killed. When we had the panel that interviewed your superintendent, yeah, you know, that was the first time in since 2006. That morning showing up to the panel for the interviews, I sat next to Steve Besant. It was the first time I met him. Now, as a Samoan, if I showed up to that interview at the district office and he showed up and I didn't do or was involved in what we did in developing Save Our Streets after Dan was shot and killed, I would have walked out and went home in shame. That's how passionate we are about our community and our youth. And those kids that were Samoan, we tried. We tried hard to talk to them about the gang life and doing what they did. So it was important for us, and it's still important today, maybe 15 years later from doing that, because I was supposed to meet Dan the next night to talk about what was going on in the back gate area and the students. So it's important then, it's important now, we're still doing it, and it's a complete volunteer effort. Altruism, you know, protecting the volunteers to do the work that they do. Tonight, I'm on patrol tonight from about 10 till 1:30 in the morning in Balderrama Park, East Side neighborhood, Crown Heights behind Oceanside High School. So Anthony that just spoke attended a meeting on March 2nd, and that was an ad hoc meeting focused on fields and facilities. And it was from there, we had about 12 or 14 of the sports coaches and mentors that deal with your kids in schools. And that's when we learned about the fields here with the Facilitron. And our proposal tonight is to please consider going forward, making an agenda item possibly, and we'd like to thank Raquel for bringing that to our attention. She came to the ad hoc committee meeting on March 2nd with the Parks and Rec Department. Is establishing or getting a human being, a person to work with your mentors and coaches in the city versus the facilitron. That's why we're here, just to put that in your minds and thoughts. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wayne.
Next, we have Rudy.
Hi, my name is Rudy Krause. There's 6 doctors here. We're talking about COVID and the COVID vaccine. You guys know nothing. You know zero. I'm going to be nominated for a Nobel Prize in the field of microbiology. I've made the most important discovery in COVID, that COVID is an anaerobic virus parasite. It is an anaerobic virus. It lives without oxygen. This is why you never mask, because you feed the parasite. You deoxify your body, it grows the virus parasite in your body. You masked, all of you bought into it. CDC, Fauci, no one in the world knows this. It is an anaerobic virus parasite. I am the one who discovered it. Here's a book that you need to read, Anaerobic Parasitic Protozoa. It'll cost you $260. You need to learn about anaerobic virus parasites. My book, 2021, Origin of the Species, Homo sapien vaccinicus, human COVID virus parasite. If you survived the first vaccine shot and the second and the booster, you're now at stage 2. Adverse reactions and death is stage 1. Stage 2 is symbiosis with the parasite. What you guys did was unfathomable. You shot the entire DNA platform of the COVID virus, vulgaris parasite, into your genome. You are now becoming symbiotic with it. You added 15,000 parasite genes to your genome. They are mutating your body. You can't get them out. These are immortal stem cells. It's like the immortal jellyfish. You can't kill it. This is Dr. Carrie Madej and her famous microscopy. She's the first person to photograph at 1600 amplification the COVID virus parasite. The spike protein is at the nano level, at the atomic level. That's like 40 nanos big, 40 atoms big. It grows up, it becomes 30 microns. That's like sperm and eggs growing up and making an adult human. But it doesn't stop there. It grows throughout the entire circulatory system of all of the vaccinated. Microscopic blood clots, that's what I'm interested in. You got your macroscopic that the...
Thank you, Rudy.
You're giving everyone this sickness.
Thank you. All right.
The next 3 speakers will be Emily Wichman, Brad Tobias, and then Todd Madison. Emily?
Hello, Emily.
I'd like to report to the board the Ethnic Studies Community Advisory Committee. We've had 2 meetings, and we're going to have a 3rd one on this week. I want to thank Dr. Loris for his work with us. Our conversations have been very interesting, and especially those with the higher education, academia, compared to the realistic high school graduation ideas. We have our membership is somewhat diverse, but not a lot. We have a committee member who has rewritten the present ethnic studies course, and it looks favorable and promising. Our conversations are so lively, and I'm hoping that because of the liveliness of our conversation and some of the understanding that's the give and the take, I want our ethnic studies course to be one that will enhance critical thinking and be a blend and of a broad and a relevant ideology. I do have a concern. There is a bill, AB 2235, and I'm concerned. It's on ethnic studies, teacher credentialing. It says it tends to standardize the that guy kind of got me hyper here. So it's standardize the teacher's credentialing process for ethnic studies, a subject area that was recently added as a high school graduation requirement. AB 2235. Specifically the bill would authorize the Commission of Teachers Credentialing to develop or add a supplementary authorization in ethnic studies and to grant authorization to a accredited holder based on the Commission's requirement. Well, ethnic studies is a political ballgame, and it has been, and it will continue to be, because commissioners are political appointments from the governor. And so the issue is, of course, as we've been hearing about, there is critical race theory, there's diversity, there's equity, there's inclusion in most ethnic studies programs, okay? And that's just the back and forth of politics. So I'm asking, when is that going to stop? So my concern is it's going to be a one-way. It's going to have to be the ethnic studies that's right now in vogue, okay, which is the liberated ethnic studies. There's also a constructive ethnic studies. So I'm hoping that this will go down because we cannot be so constrained in education because we have to fulfill the students' needs and to have a critical race theory, to have a broad spectrum. Right now, looking at the course, and everybody agrees the course is very, very narrow. And we've got to stop that because it's our community and we have to give our kids not only playing fields, but the idea of critical thinking and race and who they are.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you. Hello, Brad.
Hey, good evening, and I just want to say thank you for bringing these back in person. It's good to see our faces, and go Pirates for anybody that's still here. No, okay. These in-person meetings should have been going on. You know, in my opinion, back like in June. For you board members, I'm sure you remember my face saying these over Zoom, but thank you for this. For my discussion point tonight, I just want to go ahead and I'm going to reference Romans 13, and that is in the Bible, for those of you that don't know. It says respect governing authorities, and out of that respect, I want to offer you all some truth. I pulled some stats from the California Department of Education, mainly the LPAC website is a link to it, and these stats are for the district as a whole. Only 51.6% of students meet English standards, and only 30.9% meet math standards. Just English math, the basics of education. By those metrics, and we have a bunch of educators on the board, by those metrics, those are failing grades. In my opinion, those are your grades. But again, failing grades. On top of that, there are, the budget is 8 figures in the hole. Not good. No bueno. That's just, it doesn't take a PhD to figure that one out. By this, we need you all to fix this. I'm seeking this from a citizen, from a parent who goes to your schools. We need you to fix this. I'm pleading with you. I'm begging with you. Fix this. There's 6 doctors here. Y'all got the education. Y'all know how to solve problems. All right, we need you to listen to us. Month after month after month, it's the same stuff. Ethnic studies, CRT, the finances, and I can go on and on and on, and nothing's getting fixed. Are these even being addressed in private in other conversations? Y'all sit here and say this is a board meeting held in public. There's no conversation going on. It's nothing but 5-0 votes, square across it, maybe one comment, but there's nothing. There's nothing. There's sidebars about other personal stuff, but no actual legit conversation. We need you to represent us. We need you to have those conversations. Maybe it'll offer some public confidence if you have those conversations and have those questions for us. Please help us out. Side note on ethnic studies, it's a woke ideology. this is maybe for you, Dr. Sparks, has there been any statistical data to prove that all this pushing of diversity, equity, and inclusion is being beneficial for school, i.e. from test scores, behavior numbers, and more? This is my challenge to you. Can you provide a good ballpark or good numbers to show why it's good? Because I don't see it.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
All right, there we go again. Last one, I promise. So it's great to be back here in person. Ideally, I prefer to have an option to be both in person and online. There's no reason not to. I've seen many public meetings at city councils and things where they allow people to participate via Zoom as well as in person. I'm sure Greg and his team can handle that. They're an excellent source of technical resources. I think we should consider that and do it. Next up, so when do we move public comment back to the beginning of the meeting? As you can see, we don't exactly have a lot of people here. And in part, that's because parents don't want to sit through, new clubs for their kids to school that their kids don't go to, outdoor camps for fifth graders that they're not involved in, all the minutia of all the different things to finally get here. And we know that by having it late like this, we dissuade a lot of people from attending. They leave or they don't want to stay through the whole thing. But I think it's important that we actually hear that. I've heard that many times. Also, just as a side thing too, when can we do presentations again? Like we've done in public comment and in on agenda comment for years before this. So apparently we can't do that now. So I think that should be restored as well. Beyond that, I've said many times that the board appears to have forgotten who voted them into office, the parents. The board is supposed to be the voice of the parents in our district, but as we've seen so much in the last few years, they appear to be the voice of employees and adults, not necessarily parents and their kids. We hear how important kids are, but once again, if we look at the priorities, we can see where the money is spent. For those watching this meeting, if you recognize this, if you're a person who sees problems and wants to fix them, how about helping to fix this one? This year is an election year. It's time for parents to step up and take control of our board, to make it work for kids, not for special interests. Districts 1, 3, and 4 are up for election. The district website has maps if you're not sure which district you're in, so you can go to the Board of Education section. If you're listening to this and you care about the education of our kids, it's time to step up and run. I'm the co-director of the Oceanside Parent Association. The association is planning on doing what it can to support Kids First candidates in the upcoming election. If you'd like to discuss what running for board is all about, email us. Email address is oceanside.usd@parentassociation.net. That's oceanside.usd@parentassociation.net. Be sure to join the Parent Association in its fight at parentassociation.org as well. So let's keep up the fight to improve the education of our kids. It's been great to have all this participation in the last couple of years. We need to keep doing that. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Our final four will be Susan Custer, Mike Richardson, Patrick Herrera, and Rose Herrera. Higuera, my apologies.
Good evening. I'd like to speak about an assembly bill that's being proposed. It's AB 2565. The California for Equal Rights, CFER, opposes this bill. This bill would appropriate an unknown amount of money from the general fund to establish Mathematics and Science Educator Excellence Block Grant. The grant would also be used to advance equity and access in mathematics and science. The reason that CFER is opposed is because in this bill they want to eliminate advanced tracking and academic grouping in the name of equity. And it wants to focus on equity and detracking. Again, it's all about equity. Equity is not what the school needs. All the children need to have the same opportunities, not an opportunity for advancement, not to be slowed down because another student of a different color or race or for any reason is not able to excel. Let those who can excel. I tried to do some research on what this is all about, equity in math instruction. So I found a book, Equity, A Pathway to Equity in Math Equitable Math Instruction. And it's about dismantling white supremacy in the math classroom by making visible the toxic characteristics of white supremacy. This does not seem to be what math should be focused on. One of the way they want to do this is to expose students to mathematicians of color, particularly women of color and queer mathematicians of color. Again, that has nothing to do with math. Math is about equations and word problems and the times tables and all the things the rest of us learn. The best approach to math would be to help all students achieve the highest level possible, regardless of their color, gender, or sexual preference. Allow students to move to higher levels of math as they are ready. Math is definitely one subject that is blind to race, gender, etc. The current students will be competing in a world where other countries have been taught to excel, and these other countries are not focused on race and gender. The parents in this country and this school district need for their children to have those same opportunities to excel. It seems that focusing on...
Thank you, Susan.
Mike.
Good evening. About a year ago, I started coming to these board meetings because I discovered that you had stopped teaching the Constitution and stopped requiring eighth graders to pass a comprehensive test on the Constitution in order to graduate, as I did in 1955 when I graduated from Jefferson Junior High School. I've heard that that happened in the 80s or 90s, I don't know. So I've been coming for a year or so, and at every meeting, we have passionate people, sincere people, logical, common sense people make their case, and I've never once heard any discussion or conversation or debate or disagreement between you. You all just vote 5-0. I think that every single vote has been 5-0. So, but there is an issue that I really hope you'll have serious debate about. You all have heard that the Florida legislature passed a law recently that forbade and outlawed teaching of sexual education, sexual orientation and gender identity to kindergarten through third grade. Frankly, I can't understand why you teach that to anybody, but let's just take it from there. I would like to ask this board to establish that policy, that you will forbid the teaching of sexual orientation or gender identity in grades kindergarten through third grade. Hopefully we can do better in the future. And I'd really like to see somebody make a motion and move forward on that. You know, we have Eleanor, you're a registered Republican, apparent, seemingly a decent person who believes in common decency. Mike, you're a registered Republican. Raquel, you're a reasonable person. The three of you could pass that kind of a rule and overrule and dismiss the far left liberals that make up the other two seats on this board. Please consider that. Also, like to request that you consider, and you can't do it tonight, but that you look into Assembly Bill 1785, which was specifically written for California, and it is entitled the California Parents' Bill of Rights Act. This bill does probably more than you want to do, but you should look into it. I wish the board would support it and endorse it. That's AB 1785.
Thank you, Mike.
Patrick.
Proverbs 31, 8 through 9, King Lehu says, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights and all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy." Proverbs also says, "There is nothing that is done or said in the dark that will not be revealed in the light." Matthew 18, 6, 7 says this, "Whoever causes one of these little ones who believes in me to sin, it would be better for them if a millstone were hung around their neck and they were drowned in the depths of the sea." A millstone is 2 tons, by the way. All of you guys are public servants. And why don't you listen to the parents? I don't understand that. Why don't you protect the kids? I don't understand that. You're like bullies to these kids, teaching them CRT, BLM, gender confusion, LGBT. We've said time and time again, your job, which is evident that you've forgotten, is teaching our kids reading, writing, arithmetic, U.S. history about young men who died on the beaches of Normandy to give you the right to sit there. I don't know if you guys remember that or not. Teach our kids our Constitution. Be proud Americans. It almost sounds like you're not proud Americans. If you don't want to be Americans, you don't have to be here. You can always leave. You don't have to stay here. Be proud Americans. Teach them, the Bill of Rights, and teach them, we want you, we've said it time and time again, we want you to teach them traditional family values. That's what we want. And I'm speaking to Mike and Eric now, okay? You guys are the men on this board, okay? You're on the men on this board. And if something happens in your house, I would hope that you're the first to get out of bed and to protect who's in your home, This board is your home, okay? Why aren't you doing anything for the kids? Why aren't you protecting them? I'm talking to you guys, to both of you guys, stand up for the kids. Have a voice. Be men. Be American men. I'm not trying to say you're not men, but you know what? If you got, where's my note? If you have no courage, you have no honor. If you got no honor, what are you? You're not a man. I need you guys to have honor and courage to stand up against what's right. Protect these kids. I don't even have kids in school anymore, but I'm here trying to fight for them, and I need you guys to fight for them, please.
Thank you, Patrick.
Hi, so I want to raise awareness for 2 bills, SB 1045, which is a parental review of the classroom instruction materials. So this is a bill that's going to come up before the voters. So the instructor would be required to provide parents and guardians with copies of the lesson plans and supplemental instruction materials 3 days before the academic year. Also, SB 1785, which is the California Bill of Rights Act. It gives the parents the right to participate in their child's education, their decision-making, access to the minor children's education, the matters of discipline, and controversial curricular contents. It's kind of funny that we're in a day and age that we actually need a bill to be passed to give power to the parents. Those are our children. They're not your children. We're responsible for them, and we're their greatest teachers. And so we want to be the ones that teach them values and morals from our standpoint. The school doesn't have the right to teach them all this garbage, which you've all heard about, CRT, LGBTQ. We do need to raise our grades in math, science, and English, and allow our kids the opportunity to compete in a global society without all this hatred that's being taught to them. And it's really evident, too, that this board, I don't even know if you read the agenda, because the books that you approved are disgusting. My friend Dahmer, Jeffrey Dahmer, is that seriously something our kids need to read about a guy that was a serial killer that went and killed homosexual boys? No, they don't. And Nietzschean Buddhist writings, another one, No Way They Were Gay. Picture of Dorian Gray, it's a gay love affair. A book called Queer, LGBTQ Guide, seriously? Red, White, and Royal Blue, another gay love story. It's just very, very evident where the school is going in a direction that we as parents and community members, we do not want. Marriage is instituted by God, and therefore man can't disassemble that. And so we are traditional people here in Oceanside that believe in marriage. We are the foundation of the community. Children need one man, one woman. They need the chance to grow up in a stable environment, not with all this confusion that you guys are trying to teach them. So be people, be men and women of valor and honor, and do your job, or resign, because we do need people that are brave. You guys just vote yes, yes, yes for everything. I don't even know if you guys read the agenda. It's so important. Our kids are our future.
Thank
so
you,
fight
Rosie.
for them and do your job.